back to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. I am delighted that Staci Davidson is with me today. Staci is the owner of Everything But Design. If you go to her website, everythingbutdesign.com, you'll see she offers you consulting and bookkeeping for interior designers, okay? Now, Staci's services, ultimately, I learned, go far beyond this, literally encompassing everything but the design. And I think you're going to love hearing about her services. Staci is a good friend of our good friend, Peter Lang. And like Peter, she is one of those unique individuals that is totally left brain, but she gets us creative right brain people. And I love that. If you listened recently to the Window Treatments for Profit podcast, I had Deborah Scarpa on, and we discussed the relationship between the visionary and the integrator. And Staci is a true integrator. She is one of those people who likes to get the things done. Love that. Staci got started in the interior design industry back in 2016 when she was working as operations manager, and she helped that company grow to a multimillion-dollar firm. There, she learned everything it takes to run the back end of a successful interior design business. She is passionate about taking care of business for designers in whatever capacity you need so that you have more freedom to create and design. Today, Staci is here to share her experience and help us understand the value that outsourcing your back-end operations can bring to your business. Now, I know the books and the finances and the receipts are not what every creative dreams about or daydreams about, right? But let's face it, they are important and they can make or break your business. If you don't understand them perfectly or know how to analyze the numbers just yet, that's okay, because Staci does, and she's good at it. So let's take a listen to what Staci has to say. Hey, Staci, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, LuAnn. Thank you so much for having me.
Staci, I am excited about this conversation because as I've been getting to know you, I feel like you are a numbers person who speaks color and creativity. I love that kind of a person, right?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I feel the same way. Definitely a numbers person. And I agree. I like the interior design, the creative portion.
Yeah. I mean, you know, our mutual friend, Peter Lang, I always, from the first time I met him, I always appreciated that he has his tremendous skill set in that brilliant brain of his, but he always meets and speaks to us where we are, like not in, accounting lingo and not expecting that we understand what accrual crap means and all that stuff, right? And I'm getting that same impression from you, and I love it.
Oh, thank you so much. I know Peter is absolutely amazing, and he does have this unique way about him where he is such a numbers person, but he's able to speak to you in a way that you completely understand, even if you're not a CPA.
Exactly. So over the years, I have come across the unicorns like you and Peter, and we gather them to us because we all need you, right? And so today, we're going to talk about your company, Everything But the Design, the nuances of the services that you offer, because I'm super excited. I know that so many designers need what you're offering. But what I love is, I love that I read that you came from being the operations manager for a luxury, busy residential firm. And, the VIN man, he might be our fearless leader and our CEO and our president and all the things, but he has also always functioned as our operations manager slash bookkeeper. And so I know how important this role is in a company. And the lessons that I have learned from him over the years, watching him do that, I have taken into my business. So I just imagine, the takeaways that you've brought from doing that boots on the ground into everything but design. So talk to us a little bit about that journey and how it informs how you set up everything but design.
So when I started out in this industry, I was the operations manager for a residential interior design firm, and I was the first ever full-time employee. So I really got to learn the business completely inside and out. My background and which I'm embarrassed about now it's always the joke when I talk about when I did my interview with that business owner is I thought interior designers went shopping with clients. I thought they picked out pretty things. I had absolutely no idea. I had this HGTV view of what interior design was. I had no idea how intricate the business of design was. So in growing that firm, we grew to be a multi-million-dollar firm, several employees, published work, and whenever I would be introduced to clients, the owner would always introduce me as, this is Stacy. She does everything but the design here. And quite
Mm.
literally, that is what I did. I handled everything client facing. I handled all of the HR, all of the bookkeeping, the management of the studio, quite literally anything except for the actual design. So that's kind of what led me to start my own company, doing exactly what I did for that firm, and helping multiple business owners grow and put processes in place and kind of, realize their potential and not feeling like they have to do everything on their own.
It's great. And the thing about it is we all need that person. I had a conversation recently on the Window Treatments for Profit podcast with Deborah Scarpa, and we talked about the role of the visionary and the integrator, which is an offshoot, which is not an offshoot, is born out of the Traction EOS Entrepreneur Operating System method. And so much of what the operations manager does is that integrator role. It's like you're the person who gets it done. Everybody talks about we need 60,000 yards of fabric and 22 million yards of trim and tile and all that ordered, and we need it checked on and we need it delivered and we need it right. But who's doing that? Right?
Exactly. Yes. No, I completely agree. And I think that oftentimes the principal of a firm, they have such a high level view of everything that oftentimes they don't understand what really even goes into, once the purchase order has been placed, making sure that the acknowledgement is checked and the pricing is correct and that it's shipping when it's supposed to be shipping and it's been received and inspected, and kind of keeping the project on track from there. So there's a lot of nuances that go on behind the scenes.
And so here's what I would tell you about that in my experience, okay, is that it's not that the principal doesn't know that all that has to happen. It's my experience when I talk with interior designers all through the years, even way before the podcast, is that when they start their own firm, there are so many things to do, and that is so unfun to do that they do the bare minimum required in that aspect and not all the way the details of it. So they get the orders placed somehow, right? They get the orders placed, they get the POs out. If the fabric doesn't come in or the sofa doesn't come in, yes, the head comes up from the desk and they go, "Oh, I've got to check on that." But here's where I find that they drop the ball consistently, and it's in checking all of it for accuracy and having put in place the system and process that makes sure. So, for an example, and I know it from my own experience at WindowWorks, and like I said, working with designers, it's at WindowWorks, we're going to have 200 customers this month, and 200 customers are going to have 4, 5, 6 products ordered for each order. Vinny insists that every invoice is checked for accuracy. You see? And he finds literally thousands of dollars a year of, we just had a $12,000 invoice that was double invoiced. It was paid in July and it showed up in November again.
Oh, wow.
Can you, like, this stuff happens. And the thing is, what it was, so to your point, Stace, I know it's like, oh, maybe, they don't really know. No, they know it. There's something in the back of their mind telling them they know it. But in the beginning years, they're too busy to do it all. And then in the middle years, they haven't established the process and system. So when they have their first hire, maybe they insist that they do it. Maybe they don't. And it's not until somebody like you comes along and they're like, oh, see, that's the whole process for order placing all the way to the autopsy post project. This is where we find mistakes that other people and other companies make, and that costs my company money. Oh, right? Does that make sense to you?
That absolutely makes sense. And what I like to tell my clients is their job is to sell the goods, and then I kind of take over from there until it's time for installation.
Right.
So they can rest assured that once the sale has been made, I will take over and send the purchase orders, check the vendor acknowledgments, and make sure it's as smooth as possible up until the installation.
Mm-hmm. See, and that's what every company needs. I don't care if I don't care if you sell cars for a living, you do interior design. Somebody has to chase that back end stuff through so you got to see the joy on this man's face when he finds a mistake. And he walks around, that, like this last one, we were all like, most of the time he's like, this was overbilled by $58.25. You multiply that by 200 invoices, 12 months a year. But when he came out with that, are you kidding me? Look at this. The other people would have just paid this invoice, he's saying.
Oh, absolutely. And I think having someone who has that mindset and who's almost looking for the problem is such a benefit to the designer. An example is around market time and making sure that when those vendor invoices come in from orders placed at market, that you took advantage of the free freight and they didn't accidentally bill you freight, because you can imagine that piles up to be hundreds and thousands of dollars. That if someone's actively looking for that, you can avoid, overpaying.
Right. So this is where your company, we want to call it Hello Bookkeeping Services, but it's so much more than that. Bookkeeping is collecting the data, reporting the numbers. It sounds like you really are almost duplicating what you did for that firm and functioning as the operational back end. Tell me about how much of what I just said is true and where the nuance is in for your company.
So absolutely. So traditionally, when you think of a bookkeeper, you think about someone who's overseeing the company's financial data, and they provide the owner with financial reports. And what I found for interior designers, that simply isn't going to be enough. You need someone that has your back, and they aren't just pushing data, they're ensuring that it's accurate and advising you on next steps, best practices, ways to save money or improvements into your process. And oftentimes with business owners that I speak to, they really don't have a process yet. So they're kind of looking for some guidance on my experience and what processes I've put in place for other people and how we can kind of tweak that to the needs of their business.
I love it. See, that's the thing. It's, you get to a point, and it happens for different business owners. It happens different ways. Either you discover a double paid big invoice or, whatever it is, however it comes. And all of a sudden your brain says, oh, how many times could this have happened in the last month, years since I've been in business, because I haven't had a process in place with the checks and balances. What we always do in all of the businesses that we run, Exciting Windows, Window Works, and LuAnn and Inc., is we're consistently explaining to everybody involved that this is not this other step here. This isn't to catch you making a mistake. This is to prevent you from making a mistake, because you're a human, and we need 2 or 3 humans to check every process, because we're helping each other make sure that if I missed it, you got it, right? And it's like that, but it's that system. It's like that mechanism for doing that. So rather than you just looking at a design firm's numbers, you're actually working with them and saying, here's an example of a system that we've used before. Maybe it'll work for your firm. Maybe we tweak it or whatever, but you're helping a designer actually come up with those financial systems.
Yes, yes, helping them come up with the processes in order to be as profitable as possible. And sometimes that starts out with figuring out who is your ideal client? What is your ideal kind of project? And then working from there. If it's a client who is just getting into selling furnishings, we're going to start the process a bit different, and we're going to start establishing trade relationships and, walking them through ways of marking up. What is a good markup based on the pricing that you're getting. And all of the things that go into how they're going to invoice clients, how they're going to approach their projects, and then how they're ultimately going to sell their furnishings.
It's crazy because your website, I looked at it before. It's something that says bookkeeping and consulting or something like that. I don't
Mhm.
remember what it was. But the point is, it's just so much more than that. Like a bookkeeper isn't like, hey, let me give you some advice on what markup you should do on your furnishings accounts. Like it's way more than that, Stacy.
Yes, I agree. So for our firm, the job responsibilities of what I look at, a good bookkeeper who's familiar with the industry, it is someone who is checking your purchase orders against the vendor information, making
Mm.
sure not only that the pricing is correct, which is obviously very critical, but making sure that the nail head on the vendor acknowledgement matches what the purchase order says,
Hmm.
making sure that the COM fabric has been tracked and it got to the vendor to make the sofa, all of these things that are going to expedite the process so that you are freed up to take on more clients and generate more revenue. So, some other things that we're doing outside of what you would think a traditional bookkeeper is doing. We're handling a lot of client communications for our clients. We're sending weekly emails to their clients that are kind of broken down threefold of here's what we worked on this week, here's what's coming up in your project, and then if there's any kind of outstanding information we're waiting on from you or feedback, or do you have any questions from us? So a goal of ours and the goal of the firm is to always elevate your client's client experience. They are paying you for a luxury experience. So how can we help take that off of your plate and make sure that your clients are really feeling serviced?
I mean, you don't get me speechless too often. I was just gonna say. So I had to look at it again while you were talking. It starts with the banner: interior design, business consulting, and bookkeeping, and it is okay. So interior design, business consulting, I get it, but it seems very specialized that you meet each firm with where they are and what they need, and that it's almost like if I think about that operations manager, how does it work to work with you? Can I pick and choose the services I want? Is it do when you give out um, proposals to designers to potentially work with you? Is it each one is so custom because blah blah blah, or is it take from this level of this menu of services and add it together? And if you want just these, it's this much. Like how? Because it's so it feels very one to one. So I'm curious how you're doing it one to dozens and dozens.
So what I tell every new potential when we're talking on our very first our discovery call is that my firm can help you with as little or as much as you'd like us to help you with. So for instance, maybe someone comes to me because they had a previous bookkeeper and they really aren't feeling like they were serviced, and the bookkeeper isn't giving them the information they feel they need. So they have no idea how much money they have, what their liabilities are, and they just want someone to explain those financials to them. Well, what I've found is we will start to do that, but after we start to have regular conversations and they feel comfortable with me and they realize our capabilities, then we are taking on more and more things. Then we start to communicate with their clients. Then we're sending client invoices. So not only are we doing the bookkeeping, but through talking to me, they are discovering all of these tasks that they never knew could be taken off of their plate that
Mm.
now we're just in the background handling. So there's a damage claim. We're taking care of it. We've already filed the claim with the vendor. The replacement's on the way. And that's something that is kind of, it's taken there's no space in their mind for that right now. They know it's being taken care of.
Mm.
And to speak to your point of kind of how we charge for that. So I don't have specific packages. Everything is billed on an hourly basis. And when the relationship is growing, if a client is really budget conscious and they tell me that, there's a list a mile long of things they'd like me to take off their plate, I kind of walk them through based on their budget what I think we're going to be able to do, and kind of walk through things in that way. But what I found through every single client that I've had is that we usually start out with a handful of things, and before I know it, we're talking twice a week, and I am in their project management software. I have an email in their email suite, and I'm doing everything except designing, essentially.
So you're the operations manager now for dozens of design firms.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And so the thing about that is that it occurs to me, and I'm sure you're going to confirm it and maybe add to it, but it occurs to me that ultimately this is one of those line item business expenses that ends up creating revenue and saving, not only creating money for the firm but saving money for the firm. That, whether it takes a design owner a month or 6 months, I have to believe there's this look back that says, oh, that whatever multiple thousands a month I thought I couldn't afford for Stacy actually is creating XYZ above that. Is that a true statement?
I would agree. Yes, I think what my clients are finding is that they're able to focus so much more on design that they are getting through projects much faster and more efficiently than they
Mhm.
were when they were pulled away mentally for so many administrative tasks. So now they're taking on more work. Projects are running more smoothly. We're talking more about financials. So they are increasing their margins, they're increasing their rate to their clients because they're providing such a higher customer service experience, whether that's, through our weekly emails, whether that is through sending out client documents that we're establishing for them, updating their website. There's many ways where they are kind of increasing that experience to their clients, so they're increasing revenue.
I love it. And it's funny because I keep referencing Window Works in this, but it is so parallel to the journey of Vin and myself at Window Works, because in the beginning years, all I did was sell. That was it. I
Mhm.
didn't do, I didn't do the interviewing and the hiring of the employees. I didn't oversee which photographs went into the advertisements. I didn't get to have the conversations with the advertisers. I didn't oversee what was happening in the office. I literally woke up every day and sold. And he took care of all of the other stuff. And that is exactly that analogy, that if a design principal is able to get up and be in his or her lane, it is so true, because it's not just the sentence, oh, they get to put their time on design. You explain the rest of it, and I'm just going to emphasize it, because when a designer is in their lane and focusing on the design, all of the other things fall into place. To your point, the projects go more smoothly because they're not distracted with chasing down deficiencies. So the customer service and the attention to detail is higher, which generates referrals and repeat business. The projects get done on time because they don't spend 2 weeks doing bookkeeping and chasing down stuff. They can literally be chasing down tile guys and carpenters to show up to the job, right?
Mhm.
Like, it literally impacts everything that impacts revenue generating activities. That's the thing. It's that the revenue generating activities are the domain of the design principle, right? And when you put them in that spot and take the other stuff off their hand, everything falls into place.
Absolutely, and the design is much more elevated because you've had that
Yes.
much more time to focus on being creative. And you
Mm.
you took the words right out of my mouth, that when you have really satisfied clients who feel like they were taken care of, the referrals are going to come in. You can
Mhm.
get referrals because your work is beautiful, but when someone sees your beautiful work and then their friend or their family member talks about how great of a process it was to work with you and how you really help take the stress away from what is oftentimes, such a huge stressor in one of your clients' lives, the referred business is much greater.
Yes. I mean, the podcast was born out of my personal experience with design firms over the course of 35 years in business at Window Works, where regardless of how beautiful the design was, if the project was not handled well, the firm wasn't busy. They always got another project eventually, these, firms out there that I knew, but it wasn't the continuous pipeline. Whereas I watched firms that, the design was great, but not exceptional. Like, the difference. You know
Sure.
the difference, right? And but they would be busy, always with new clients. But the thing was, I knew from their interactions with Window Works, it was a buttoned up shop. And so therefore it was reasonable to assume that it was buttoned up in all manners. And that's the thing. A client can say all day long, and this is what they would say: absolutely gorgeous, but man alive, what a pain and the you know what to get it done. And nobody wants that. And so when you are either not capable of developing a process for that, or you don't have the time, it doesn't matter. The result is the same. It impacts your profitability and your pipeline, right?
Yes, and part of that, and something that I'm always advising clients on, and we're having regular conversations, are the sales aspects of setting the client expectation from the time that they sign on to be a client with you. So really almost overly communicating with clients, because oftentimes they've never worked with a designer. They don't know this process. We live in this Amazon world where you order something, sometimes it's at your doorstep the same day, or it's there in 1 to 2 days. And so, really setting the expectation and communicating with clients throughout the project is so critical. So that way it avoids any misunderstandings, upset clients, because the reality is, especially post COVID, the furniture is going to be late. It's going to be delayed. It's not going to be here when you thought it was going to be here. But as long as we're communicating with the client about that and setting that expectation and doing everything we can to get it here as soon as possible, then they feel like we're their advocate and they're being taken care of.
I love it. It's so true. And the other thing that you mentioned in there, I do not want to gloss over, is that you said that another benefit of a designer working with your company is, as your communication grows and the conversations grow, and you are pointing out where and how this project was profitable, this project might not have been profitable. And it's through these eye opening conversations that designers do raise their prices and do consistently stick to charging their worth. I noticed that in both my one-on-one coaching with chairman of the board, but I also notice it in our company Exciting Windows, where Vin and I and our two partners, Steve and Steve, we basically are coaching, mentoring window treatment professionals from around the country, stays, to be profitable.
Mhm.
And it's literally the exact same mechanism. We meet every week, every single Thursday by Zoom as a company, all of us. And the more, like, we've had members say to us, I've been listening in on the Zooms and I'm hearing the margins that you guys are making and the markups that you're doing and this and that. But I have to say, even though I've been a member for 6 or 7 months or whatever, I didn't believe you guys. like literally, like we come here every week and we lie, right? I didn't believe you guys. However, I finally just decided to just raise my prices and see what happened. And one gentleman didn't say the whole part about believe. He just said to us recently, he said, I used to have an average sale of like $3,000 for years. And after 3 months of joining your company, my average sale is over 6,000. And he said, and that's because I was not charging enough and being with people who are consistently talking about how they charge and what they charge made me understand it's possible. I'm not different than everybody else. And so I love that the designers in their conversations with you and those in your company are getting that same message. This is not enough margin. You can do more. And what happens is, like, that's another place where a service like yours actually generates income, right?
Yes, and another conversation that I'm always having with designers, if they have a behind the scenes chaotic business, they kind of have imposter syndrome where they feel like, well, I don't deserve to charge this much,
Mm.
or I'm not worth this much. So elevating the experience from the get-go when the client signs on and feeling really confident in your processes and what you're going to be delivering to the client helps the designer feel more powerful and justifies to them you are 100% worth what you're charging, and you have room to increase your margins, and you have room to increase your hourly rate or increase, the design time flat rate that you're charging a client. And one interesting conversation I had with a new potential client last week is she's a very successful design firm in Georgia, and she told me that she's changing her business model and she's no longer going to be selling to the trade furnishings. She's going to shop retail with her client's credit card. And I asked her why she would do that. And she said, I'm just so overwhelmed with the process that is procurement, sending purchase orders, tracking everything, the
Mm.
expectation of how long things are taking to come in. And I've had so many upset clients. And so really talking her through a way to rectify that for herself and to modify her process, because she would be losing out on so much profitability
Oh
by
goodness.
shopping
Yeah.
retail when she already has all those trade relationships. So I think, sometimes people are so overwhelmed because they don't have a process in place, and it takes something as little as someone suggesting something they hadn't thought of that could turn that around for them.
Mm. And the sin of it is, you know what that actually is? That's like I have a bakery, and instead of figuring out how to order the flour, the eggs, and the milk, I'm going to go over to the grocery store and buy the cupcakes and put them under my counter every day to sell. Like, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's
Yes.
the exact same thing. And any business person would say, that's ridiculous. But an interior designer, in their frustration in having that back end support, sometimes turns to that, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I think speaking to the point of, talking about profitability and where are you making the most money? What are you selling the most of? If you just have a bookkeeper that is reconciling your accounts, providing financial reports, but not really talking you through that, saying, this is what you sold in furniture and this is what your markup was. Or last year you sold X amount of dollars in window treatments and you had a huge markup on window treatments. So we need to really focus on making sure we're incorporating window treatments into all of our future projects, or lighting or area rugs, whatever it might be, but really making sure that the principal understands what they're selling and how much they're making off of those categories, and setting up the categories to begin with. Because a lot of times, maybe they got a new accounting software and it wasn't set up initially in order to work in the best way for the designer. So making sure that that's kind of audited and cleaned up so that they are able to go into their own software and pull that information.
I love that. It's so funny that you mentioned analyzing where you're making your money. We do that. We do that in our businesses. What are the different revenue generators, and where do we make the most return based on all the things,
Mhm.
on how much it costs us to acquire that portion of the business, how much time it takes to execute that portion of the business, if there actual are any physical costs attached to that portion of the business, and then what are the margins? What is the actual revenue and gross revenue generated from that? And it is eye opening. And if you don't know how to do it, to have a bookkeeper service like yours that brings that out and teaches you to look at that, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. I really feel like when I'm working with my clients, I get so excited almost as if it's my own business. When they sign their ideal client, I'm just as excited as they are. Or when I get to see the installation photos of this really successful project that I know we really stepped it up in our customer service, and the client is so happy and everything went as smooth as possible. I get so much joy from even the weekly conversations that I have with clients where they are telling me, I feel the weight off of my shoulders because I would have had to do these 20 things myself, and I would be scrambling to finish these drawings for a meeting I have tomorrow. And now it's all already been done.
Yeah.
So I really take a lot of pride in that, in the personalization of our services and the personal interactions that I have with my clients, because that's what really fuels me and makes me so happy.
I love it. I love it. It's incredible. And, the other thing I just want to go back to and emphasize again what you said in there is how when somebody is feeling insecure about their back end, that shows up in their charging, in their fees, and the way that they do their proposals. And I have said on the show many, many times and in person, people will say to me, I just not sure if I can or I should. And, instead of asking, what do you make, charge an hour now, or what do you, how do you come up with your proposals now? I always say to them, what's your back end look like? Well, how are your operations? Because it is literally the hip bone is connected to the ankle bone moment. As soon, what I have never, ever, ever met a designer who has put in the actual literal hard work to document and execute projects according to system and process that now doesn't say, and hell yeah, this is how much I'm going to cost. Because once you do it, you're like, OMG, this is not, we say how the consumer has that ridiculous HGTV view of the designer, like you mentioned in the beginning. Oh, we just get pretty things and we just, put them together in a room. But I have to say, a lot of the times it's the designer themselves that negates all of the things that go into it and just come to the conversation in their own mind of, well, I mean, can I really charge that much for just making a beautiful room? It's like, yeah, like it isn't just making a beautiful room, right?
Absolutely. And I completely agree with you. And I think one part of my business that I absolutely love is empowering new business owners who don't have that confidence yet in the sales verbiage. And a lot of times we will be on Zoom calls and I'm typing up suggested sales verbiage to them to explain the experience that it is to work with a designer.
Wow.
So, we talk a lot about their client will come back to them because they had shopped the lighting that they proposed and they found it cheaper online. And I am talking them through, you're always going to be able to find that a piece randomly, any piece cheaper online, but you are selling yourself and your services. So you have carefully picked that item to put in that designed room. So you're not just selling them furnishings, you're not just selling them lighting,
Right.
You're selling yourself, you're selling your design. So, I think you can kind of see the light bulb click on when a project goes the way that you hope it goes, and you charged what you were worth and the client is happy and the design is something you're really proud of and you can't wait to put those images on your website. And then it clicks that, okay, I can do this and I am worth this and this is the way I'm going to do it going forward.
Right. You're speaking my love language now. We're not selling the commodity item. We're not like it's, I have people that in window treatments will be like, oh, I got a lower price. I'm like, awesome. Go get 3 more estimates. You'll keep getting a lower price. If that's your goal, keep going, because I never said to you this was going to be the lowest price. I said to you all the things that we would do for you in the scope of this project for you. Do you know what I mean? It's and you do have to stand on that. And also too, you have to really, we just had a situation at Window Works recently where I'm talking about Window Works a lot because Kimberly is out on maternity leave, and guess who's back in Window Works every day?
It's fresh on your mind.
It's like, we shouldn't have talked about Window Works. I'm like, oh my God. I am measuring drapes and quoting yardage and placing letters. Yay.
I bet you can't wait for her to come back.
Oh, sweet Jesus. It's only been a month.
Oh no.
I got 3 more to go.
Yes.
But we had a situation where gave a proposal to a designer. Their client went behind the designer's back, went to some other place in a different state that they had worked for before, and said, this quote for window treatments is, X amount of dollars less. Well, the crazy thing is I read the quote. It was a different size. It was a different window treatment material. It was a different operating mechanism. And I just called the designer. I'm like, sweetie, what are we doing here? What are we doing? First of all, you're not selling a commodity. You picked these window treatments. You met with Kim. You picked these out of all of the samples. They just picked up the phone and called someplace and gave them all your intellectual property. That's what you're selling. And not to mention, they didn't get an apples for apples quote.
And that's what, I'm talking designers through all the time, is that you have curated these pieces specifically for
Yes.
this design. And not only that, but part of the process that I think it's important to really make sure your clients understand, again, going back to this world of you order something online, you get it. Not only have you curated this to fit the design, but you are making sure that it is received, inspected, white
Mm-hmm.
glove delivered. You are handling everything so the client can walk in and see this beautiful curated custom space for you, and you're taking the headache and all of the work away from your client. And so there's something to be said for that level of customer service and that experience that they're getting from you that you can't just get by going online and shopping.
Right, right. It goes back to my 9 billion times making the restaurant analogy, right? It's like you can go buy, a $20 steak at the ShopRite, the grocery store, and you can cook it, or you can pay somebody $80 to prepare it for you and serve it to you on a beautiful china and have like the waiter say, "Is everything fine?" It's the experience, it's the delivery, it's all that it's cooked just a little nicer and it looks a little prettier and you didn't do anything. You just showed up, right? And when somebody is, it's funny because that conversation about checking, somebody going online and comparing the one item and getting it, telling the designer they have a lower price. I don't remember the language that Sandra Funk uses from House of Funk and the creator of the interior design standard. But I know she has it as part of her agreement with the clients before they sign the contract that you don't get to check my pricing. Like you can do it all day long, but don't tell me about it. I'm not interested. Like if you work with me, that's it. So if you want to spend your time searching the internet, awesome, make a little book about it, but it's not entering our conversation. And I don't remember the way she explains that so that you have to be able to explain it so that it makes sense. It can't just be like, put your hand up, right? It has to be a thing. But I'll bet if you're interested in knowing that, you could probably go to her YouTube channel and search it for her design sips, or just reach out to her through Instagram and ask her which show it is that she talks about it, because that is the next step when your confidence builds and you're sure of your back end and your process and your system. The first level result is that people just stop doing that because they understand inherently they're getting so much more than that one lamp. Okay. But the next step is actually having your process and system and the confidence so well established that you just tell them this won't happen. Right, Stace?
Absolutely. And I think, and I'm probably misquoting her, but I think Sandra talks about not apologizing
Oh,
for
yeah, that for
your
sure.
markup. And, the bottom line is, of course, the designers are in this to make money. And I think that setting the tone, and again, this goes back to establishing the relationship with the client upfront and the communication. So whether it's that you don't take on a project unless it is X amount of rooms and you're providing design and furnishings for those rooms, or you're being very upfront about the fact that you have trade only relationships and you're able to source for them. And typically you're going to come in, your pricing is going to be, 25 to 30% under MSRP costs. But there are certainly going to be times in a project where you can shop things, lighting just comes to mind because I think it's easily shopped, but
Mm,
where you may be able to find something that's costs less per item. But I agree with you. I think removing that conversation entirely and setting the expectation that I'm furnishing the project for you, I'm acting as your advocate, and you have to trust me and my design and my process, that I'm not overcharging you. This is, it's a fair price.
right, right. I love it. I love it. And it really is, the hip bone is connected to the knee bone. When you really cognitively, intellectually, and have it documented, own the myriad of details that you take on even the simplest of design projects to, gosh forbid, the most complex. it really does make it so much easier to just say, and here's the price, right? Here's what it costs.
Absolutely. And, if you set yourself up for success, not only in over communicating with clients, but giving them documents that they can refer back to if those things ever do come into question, or they are, there's some pushback on pricing, or there's some pushback on one of your processes, then you can always refer to, well, in our investment guide or in your welcome packet, we talked about X, Y, and Z, or, this was part of the process with working with us. So I think really feeling confident in yourself, your design, and your processes will elevate your business so much.
I love it. I love it. Now, one question in the weeds, because it does occur to me, especially as I was just mentioning Sandra, my brain went to it. When you mentioned a while back that a lot of times your relationship with a design firm will evolve to the point that you actually are doing the communication to their clients on their behalf about the keeping of the order flow going, is what I'm hearing in that, and that you have an email in their email suite. So I get it that you come from this exact background, doing this exact thing, and having a proven track record of helping that designer, grow their firm to multiple millions. But, you have a company and there's people that work for you, and it's not always going to be you. How do does a designer, like where made me remember Sandra is because Sandra in her design standard has dozens of email templates. It's like, when a customer complains about price, this is the email. When a customer
Mhm.
won't pay their bill, this is the email. And then of course each designer in her firm knows that you tweak it for the exact situation and exact conversation. But essentially Sandra has taken the time to decide her position on a myriad of issues. Like, when your furniture is going to be another 10 weeks later than I already told you. Like,
Mhm.
that's a very personal thing, the way communication comes from a firm, but it's not efficient to have the principal always say, well, I have to be the one to word it because I know how I want to say it. So do you assist in those email templates? Do you just say, well, we're not that evolved yet, Lou? I mean, I really know what I'm doing, and so that's how it works. Or do you request that a designer kind of spend that little bit of hard time up front coming up with 5 or 6 of the most common types of objections or difficult conversations that you have their voice? How does that work, Stacy?
So it works a couple different ways with my clients. And as opposed to a templated format where it is kind of a handful of potential issues or updates, it's really serves more as their weekly update of where project specific what is happening within their project. And to be completely
Okay.
honest, some weeks it's, hey, just popping in to say hi. I don't really have a major update this week. We're continuing to track your furniture. We'll be in touch next week. It's just at that level of customer service to let them know that there might be a little bit of a lull depending on where the project is, but we're thinking about you. We'll be in touch. We're still working behind the scenes. To answer your question about how those emails are generated, there's a couple different ways currently with the client load that I have now that we do that. Some of my clients, I get on an actual Zoom call with them, and they are typing, I'm typing, and they're telling me what they want to be in those emails. And then the day of the week that we send them, I copy and paste what we typed up together into the format that is, hi, it's Stacy from XYZ Interiors, just popping in with your weekly update. And then I paste in that information. I have some clients who really want it to be in their voice and things that they need longer time than just talking to me. So they sit down, they put it into their project management software in the form of a task per client, and then
Mm,
I go in weekly, copy and paste those into, again, this is Stacy from XYZ Interiors, just sending your weekly update, and paste in what they have put in.
okay.
So it can be collaborative, or it can be more of, hey, Stace, the emails are ready to be sent on Friday. I've uploaded everything into Asana or Trello, or I've sent you over what clients via email I want to send updates to this week, and here are the updates.
Okay.
So it really is dependent how the client likes to work. What I have found a lot of times is that designers have a hard time sitting down to think about what they want in the update. So I will get on a call with them and I'm just typing as they're talking, and then I refine it before sending it. So
Okay.
they're telling me, oh, I met with so and so yesterday. This is what I'm kind of working on based on our meeting. We have an upcoming meeting on this date in 2 weeks. So I'm compiling that into an email and sending it over to the client.
Okay. And I think I'm hearing the nuance of the what's happening here is you're and I'm and not to say that you would never have send an email about a hard conversation. I'm not precluding that, but I think I immediately was imagining emails about hard conversations. That's like my tagline, my way to describe anything that's like not, fun to write. But you're really talking about weekly statuses, and that is so important because it averts so many of the hard conversations, because the hard conversations come when somebody's been out there and they feel like anybody's telling them what's going on. So I so I can understand that. Like, this is a weekly update that gives you everything that's going on so that, Sally Smith is out there feeling like her project is on time, on schedule, and things are happening. And probably the random time when somebody comes back and says, well, that's nonsense because blah blah blah, the principal probably is going to handle that. That's not necessarily, somebody's giving big pushback that you're going to take it upon yourself to then debate whether or not it's okay that the thing is delayed again, right?
Absolutely. So what
Got
I
it.
tell
Makes more
all of my
sense.
clients is I would never want one of their clients to reach out and ask them what's next. It's our
Right.
job to always make sure they feel taken care of. They know exactly what's coming next. They know where they are in the process of the design, or and they know where they are in the design process. And they don't ever have to come to us and say, hey, I haven't heard from you in a few weeks, kind of what's going on, or when do you think I could get my furniture, or when should we expect that design? And to speak to the portion as far as having a hard conversation. Certainly, there are times where my clients have become familiar enough with me because they hear from me on a weekly basis via these weekly updates, where they will email me and say, I was really hoping that the sofa would have been delivered by Thanksgiving. Can you please let me know if there's any chance we're going to get it by Christmas? So when I'm having those touch base calls with my client, I'm saying, your client reached out. This is how I'd like to respond. Do you feel comfortable with me responding, or should I shoot them a call and talk them through where we're at? So I'm never on my own taking that initiative to have a conversation that I haven't approved with one of my clients, but certainly I am facilitating those conversations and talking that through with the client, and then calling their client if necessary.
I like it. I like it. I'm glad I asked that because I was thinking the other and I was like, that's a little crazy pants. Okay.
Sh-
That makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I have to tell you, I'm sure that I could ask you questions all day long about this because I just am so endlessly fascinated with people like yourself and Vinny and others that have this skill set for dissecting complex tasks that we have to do in our business and breaking them down into not only just steps, but steps that have accountability. And that is the cornerstone of any process, that it has that accountability built in. It was what I was talking to before about, the 2 or 3 step check. It's two or three sets of eyes. And so it's just fascinating to me that brains that work that way. And of course, somebody that can do it, that in my mind, like literally it's the compassion for the fact that we don't have this ability, that the Vin man doesn't have that compassion. I have to say all the time, he really doesn't. He can't understand. Why don't you just understand that this has to be done? And I'm like, right, like, okay, I understand it now. Right.
Yes.
So I love it, I really do, and I think it's awesome. Stace, tell everybody how they reach out and learn about your company and possibly, have a meeting with you to discover if you guys might be a right fit for them.
Sure. So I welcome anyone to go to my website and fill out a new client submission form. My website is everythingbutdesign.com, and those submissions come directly to me. And then I will be in touch to schedule a discovery call to hear more about your business and how we can help.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Stacy, for being here today. And I think the services that you provide are just like so desperately needed, but so well thought out. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, LuAnn. I really appreciate you having me, and I appreciate the time.
Holy cannoli, right? Don't you need a Stacy in your life? Like, I'm dead serious, right? Not only is she knowledgeable, but she's compassionate. I love when a left brain person is nice to us right brain creatures. It's very important. I respect their skill set, and it makes me crazy when they don't respect ours. And you can see that Stacy gets it. She understands that this is easy for her and it's how her brain clicks, and but she respects and loves the creatives and loves to make life easier for interior designers. And that's so amazing. And of course, her former boss got that too. When you introduce somebody on your team as Stacy, the one who does everything but the design, I mean, how loaded is that introduction? That is saying, this is my everything on the back end. And I love, love, love that she got that acknowledgement and respect from her former boss, right? And now Stacy is out doing this for multiple interior design firms, helping you reach your goals, right? Helping you with individualized systems that work for you so that you can reach your full potential. I just love it, right? And it is crazy. I mentioned in the intro that coming on the heels of the Visionary Integrator episode on window treatments for profit, episode 125 with Deborah Scarpa. And the thing is, Stacy is truly an integrator to a T. And when you hear the difference between a visionary and an integrator, I think as a visionary, you can just finally give yourself permission for stop kicking yourself in the butt and saying, why won't I just hunker down and figure this back end out? It's because your brain doesn't click that way. It just doesn't. But you have options, right? You have options. And outsourcing is one of them. And if you're just starting out and you're thinking you couldn't or you shouldn't spend the money on this, I want you to consider the ROI of it, right? I also want you to consider, if you're going to try and do everything yourself and work against your superpowers, that you could burn out faster. Okay, outsourcing could be a good thing if done properly. And here's the thing, you don't take on, all of the taxes and the payroll and the unemployment and all those, things that add up when you have a full-time employee. And of course, the benefit is you hire for the exact lane that you need. And so even if you're relatively new in business, I would encourage you to think about it. And just a week or so ago, we just talked with Carla Titus, episode 843, who's a fractional CFO. It's that level up, right? The one that level up above this that is helping you. So these are two different roles, right? So one is boots on the ground, taking everything apart, making sure the invoices are done and the accounting and the bookkeeping is all tight. And then Carla is the big, picture thinker, helping you look at your money across the quarters and throughout the year. So there are ways to get these people in your world without having to take them on full time. And I just love that they keep finding me and the podcast so I can tell you about them, right? So the other thing is that I knew when Stacy said she was a friend of Peter's that she was going to be a friend of mine. I told you that, right? And if Peter Lang is somebody that you haven't heard of yet, then you need to hear about Peter Lang. He is the designer CPA. He is a CPA that literally only works with interior designers. And this gives him unique superpowers to helping you navigate your business and make sure that you are running on all cylinders. And Peter is a co-author in the first volume of the Power Talk Friday book, which you can get at LuAnnNigara.com/book. Okay. And you also, I highly encourage you to go back and find, we'll put them in the show notes, of course, the episodes with Peter Lang. So much good advice in the episodes with Peter. All right. So if you want to learn more about Stacy and everything but the design, please go to her website, everythingbutthedesign.com. All right. You can see some of her services, set up a discovery call if you think you want to. That would be awesome. All righty. Well, I have to say thank you. Thank you for joining me today. LuAnn University is getting ready to ramp up, so I hope that you are on my email list so that you know when we're opening early bird and all the things, and you can learn about LuAnn University and the classes that we offer. Many of them do have to do with the finances, so that, because you know me, I want you to understand what you're doing before you source it out. So we've got courses on process and systems and finances so that you can own the information, but then, yes, get someone else to do it. Okay. But I'm never a fan of just turning the responsibility over to someone before you know how to do it, because then you don't have the skill set to oversee them. And we never, ever look away from overseeing our own business. Okay. we find people we trust, we find people we respect, but the accountability lies with us. So LuAnn University is designed specifically so that you have the skill sets to know what you're looking at, so that things that look good, things that don't look so good actually stick out to you, so you can ask them questions. All right, so look at LuAnnUniversity.com. All righty. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it. I really do. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Niagara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNiagara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.